Fruit flies, the 7-figure pygmy goby, the monarch butterfly, Laborde's chameleons. All of these animals have longer lifespans than Concord. The PS5 has officially lost a game. Lawbreakers has outlasted Concord. You guys remember Knockout City? Also pretty good game. Outlasted Concord. Hell, even the Marvel Rivals playtest has lasted longer than Concord. I'm not trying to gloat here about this, by the way. I don't think that Concord's retraction is something good for the industry, or really even just the people working to make it. As gaming news becomes quicker and quicker to announce various leaks, layoffs, all that kind of stuff, we kind of forget that a lot of these games are really, really old. Concord is almost a decade old, actually, and let's get this straight. When it was being first conceptualized, Dark Souls 3 was coming out. Overwatch had just dropped. We had the Hitman reboot, the first one. We had the Doom reboot just coming out. Stardew Valley had just released. I'm gonna date it even more. Pokemon Go had come out that year, alright? That's when Concord was first being conceptualized. When games this big are being created, it's pretty normal for them to take, a few years just to get off the ground because of how much investment needs to go into it. But Concord is something else. This is an 8-year game that looks like this. I'm gonna really date this game, by the way. 2016 was this. You see these memes right now? Do you see this? Do you feel the cringe just looking at this? Do you understand how dated this thing is just looking at these memes? I hate it. I hated researching this part of it. I hate this. Overwatch and hero shooter DNA is so deeply baked into this thing that any attempt to patch in other types of game modes, play styles, other types of variations just falls flat. It feels cheap. It feels like, tacked on. Flatness is really the biggest element of the visual style that I kind of get from Concord. All of these character designs look so good, to me at least, as 2D stylized representations, 2D animated. Maybe if you leaned into more of that, it would look a lot better, but unfortunately, what we're stuck with is something that screams, we need to flex graphics. We need to flex hyper-realism. And so we have this strange, almost uncanny valley effect of these characters that look, designed for something else and somehow sucked into another game, kind of like that weird Jimmy Neutron crossover episode, if you remember that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not averse to hero shooters. I may not be a big Overwatch fan, but I spent a significant amount of my gaming time this year playing playtests for 2 different hero shooters, actually. I spent a ridiculous amount of time playing the playtests for both Mecha Break and Marvel's Rivals. Rivals is definitely the closest to that classic Overwatch formula, but I think with solid fundamental mechanics that are still kind of different from Overwatch, really, really good art style direction, a solid focus on flashy abilities that don't feel necessarily too crazy, but still empower the player a lot more than what I'm used to, it feels fun. It feels really fun to just hop in a game and play. As well, with the IP integration that doesn't just feel cheaply tacked on to get more players, I feel like, Spider-Man when I'm playing it. I feel like Magneto. I feel like Penny Parker, kind of. I don't know. It's awesome. It's a very fun design game, and what I would describe it is polish and really, really well done IP integration. Mecha Break is the complete opposite in a lot of ways. This game is largely driven by how you want to play. I would describe Mecha Break as more adapting a mech to what you want to do. Yes, it doesn't have the same amount of customizability that you get in like Armored Core or maybe Gundam Breaker 4 or something, but what it does have is pretty decent cosmetic customizability, as well as just absolutely insane gameplay. This is a completely ridiculous game, and it delights in being able to save your crazy little highlights. And I find that really, really charming, especially when play of the games are already something that's kind of been a little played out. Having the ability to just immediately save it to your hard drive is a really nice thing. You have a very classic hero shooter formula baked into that mech game. It's just that you're also a flying mech, and you can customize your ability to sort of stay in the air longer. Maybe you want to be faster. Maybe you want to have more damage. All these things can be added on as you play the game more and more. So it becomes, again, more you and your mech versus you changing to fit the hero's playstyle. When I hear people talk about Concord, even the people who actually kind of enjoyed it, it's very rare to get some sort of X factor like I can describe with any of those two games. Where, you know, in Marvel Rivals, I had such a good time playing Penny Parker that I could not stop playing that character. I was ranting about it. I was grinding to get the cosmetic just for the thing, even if it was not going to get unlocked for the official release. It was just such a fun experience for me. And for Mecha Break, just the adrenaline rush of ramming a sword into some enemy mech and chasing them across the map is just so exhilarating. But when I hear people talk about Concord, it's just like, yeah, I mean, this character's nice. I don't know any single character's names from Concord. I think I was maybe one of the only few people actually excited for it when it was announced. And while I get a lot of people wanted it to be a story game, and to be fair, I did too, it seemed okay. It seemed interesting. I was kind of thirsting for a team shooter that I could actually play with my friends that isn't just GM Overwatch. The whole time, Concord just seems like a complete nothing. All that people talk about are the ridiculous amounts of dev time and development costs spent to make this game, and how it really didn't matter. Sony has shifted and closed a lot of studios over the years. This is very standard practice for the industry. You may be wondering why we might not have a Bloodborne port for PC or a remaster for the PS5, something to get us to that treasured 60 FPS. While I'm not entirely sure this is the reason, I think it's a pretty good guess. The studio that made it, Japan Studio, has been merged, acquired, shifted around Sony for a pretty long time now. And the people that made Bloodborne aren't really working together as a team anymore. Something we forget about studios is that they aren't just names. They aren't just places you work at. They aren't just buildings that you kind of walk into. They're just people. They're just groups of people that are able to collaborate creatively to make something you love or maybe even hate. And splitting them apart, laying them off, getting rid of them, moving them away, that's not really conducive to creative thought, to creative output. Japan Studio didn't just make Bloodborne, by the way. They made Eco. They made Ape Escape. They made Patapon. They made Gravity Rush. They made Parappa the Rappa. They made The Last Guardian. They made Shadow of the Colossus. As they become further and further away in terms of gaming history, that's all they're going to be for people, right? It's just these names that at one time made a classic, or two, or three, or four, and so on. All of that talent, that knowledge, that experience, that integration, that ability to work as a team was traded for a game that couldn't last a month. The easiest thing to do in these kinds of conversations is to bring up Nintendo because of their famously long dev times, because of their famously pretty decent dev culture, for their ability to put out hit after hit after hit. And I'm going to be very honest with you here. I am not familiar with Nintendo's dev culture. I am not someone who's worked there. I'm not a journalist. I don't know necessarily exactly what's going on there. But what I can tell you is that Nintendo is not afraid of dropping a concept if it doesn't work. One of the easiest tips that you can get as someone who wants to make video games is to make a playtest first. Narrow the concept down until you have the bare essentials and see if it's fun. See, even if it's just interesting. It doesn't even have to be fun. Games don't have to be necessarily fun, but that's a whole different video. I think they just have to make you feel something. They have to make you feel interested. They want to make you play. It feels like Concord didn't get that phase, or if it did, it was so long ago when the game had gone through so many iterations to get to this point that playtest was basically null and void, really. And to be clear, this is not a call to hate on these people who made this game. I don't fundamentally think that they actually wanted to work on this game, or if they did, they had to make a lot of decisions according to executives in order to sort of fit the game into the niche that Sony wanted. It's just like every single time one of these things happen, it just feels like the people who made the decision don't know what a game is fundamentally and what makes them fun. I don't play a game to spend a ton of money. I can gamble for that realistically. I play a game to have a good time sometimes with my friends to feel some skill expression, to get some cool cosmetics so I can look at my character to feel a sense of progression. You have to treat these things like they're hobbies. You have to, again, I can't solve the gaming industry with some stupid YouTube video, but it just feels ridiculous when this keeps happening every single time. You can see the recent failures of Destiny 2, the recent massive fall-offs of that player base. You can see tons of games getting either reshuffled, moved around, even just studios being straight up acquired, sold, closed down, simply to finance some ridiculous, stupid games that have just been in development hell for years. It just feels like this is the era of the buyout, the merger, the acquisition. Really just people getting laid off. Concord didn't start these things, it's just a symptom. Longer dev times, more investment needed, less risk as dictated by whoever spent the money, and worse games, in my opinion. There's a pretty famous image that kind of goes around every single time this thing happens where it's like, I want worse games with like less, like worse graphics and like shorter and whatever, and I'm not joking. And a lot of people like to dunk on this, and I think I get why, to be honest with you, but I also understand that like they're not really saying they want worse games necessarily. They're really saying they want riskier games, in my opinion, because riskier games don't necessarily need all that money. They just need to be a little out there, and people will play regardless. There's a lot of similarities between Concord and Deadlock. Deadlock allegedly started development in 2018. I don't know that for sure. There's a lot of iffy sources on that. It's my best guess. You can correct me if you want. It's very similar in a lot of ways. It has that similar sort of 6-year dev time that a lot of more mature games kind of get in the AAA space. It's a hero shooter mashed with something else. It's attempting to revitalize a genre that's been dominated by the big players for a few years. In a lot of ways, yeah, it is a very similar game. It's just the reception has been the polar opposite. And you can say that simply because it's a new Valve game. I get it. Not everyone has a VR headset. Play this instead, right? It's also perhaps even just a marketing campaign, having sort of these closed betas that you kind of have to get an invite to get into. I've played maybe 90 minutes of it. And while I don't necessarily think it's my type of game, what I can appreciate is that there's a vision behind it. And I think it actually makes people happy to play. It makes people want to play more, makes people want to learn the characters. There's very interesting character designs in it. There's an interesting art style with this weird sort of railway system with these strange little minion guys. The heroes are interesting just to look at, even if they're really just unfinished. There's something here. There's a personality behind it that isn't just like weird rip-off, hyper-realistic Guardians of the Galaxy mixed with like generic sci-fi. It's a game that has faith in it from its developer, Valve. I genuinely don't think that Sony had any faith in Concord. I don't think it had any faith in its price tag, which ironically, I'm pretty sure was dictated to it because it was in development for 8 years and they have to recoup that cost somehow. And yet, this weird half trust, half pulling back killed it. By trying to make the perfect eternal live service hero shooter game, by trying to replicate Overwatch, a game that's meant to last forever only lasted 2 weeks. If you want to be normal about video games and talk about it with me, drop me a comment. I really do appreciate it. Drop me a subscribe. I put out videos every single Thursday. I like to be normal about this industry. I like to be mad a little bit too, but not for stupid reasons. You know what I mean? Check out my other videos if you're interested. I do make camera videos, but I also make this. If this video does pretty well, I think I might step away from that and just do this kind of stuff for a little while too. So thank you very much. Drop me a like if you liked it. Give me some feedback. Thank you very much. All right.